I feel so sluggish. Who knows what to do?
Billings, Montana.
Where do I find the best signs for the best price?
I know where.
I have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me?
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to your Changing Times. This is our 8th show. And I am one of the co-hosts, Lynn Morris, and
Don Blackard.
Don Blackard. I tell you what, we have got a great show. I guess another super guest show. We've got 2 great super guests today, and we're going to introduce them in a minute. But, you know, we're live in Springfield, Missouri at the Axe Media Group Network. And Matt is our producer. Thanks, Matt, for doing everything that you do for us.
My pleasure.
I tell you what, you're a lifesaver and helping us a lot. You know, Don, let's tell the people how they can find out more about the Axe Group and how they can like our page. And if they don't see it live, we're always on Friday live from 10 to 10:45. However, if you miss it, because I know everybody's busy, and you want to come look at it that night or in the afternoon or maybe a week later, you can do it. So tell the people a little bit about that.
Yeah, you're going to go like the Axe Media Group page, and that way you can see our show every week and see all the other shows that Axe has that they're putting out. So Axe Media Group, go like that and then share our page and share our post.
Very good. And we appreciate if you want to send some type of comment into Facebook, we'll see it. And we really appreciate all the positive comments that we've gotten and appreciate all the people that are watching our show. One of the things that you can do to help us help other people is to share. Let other people know what this show is about. It's about real issues and real discussions. You know, when the president, Jim Whining of Axe Ministry, asked me probably 2 or 3 years ago to do this show, and I never said yes until recently. When he started talking about the changing social issues, the changing values and the social issues that we are facing today as a nation, I just couldn't hardly turn him down. So I finally did it. I'm so glad that we picked Don Blackard as our co-host. She's awesome. And the song, someday we'll take the time to play the host song because she's written that song. And she does a lot of different things, but creative things. But the song is an awesome song. It's very upbeating, very patriotic, and so we're really proud of that show and song. And that's what we start with and end with on every show. But let's go ahead and get into our guests. And Don, I'll let you lead off.
Yeah. Well, we're so excited that our platform is going where we want it to be. And that is, we had other people connect us to Shayla that's on the show today. Executive Director Marissa DeClue actually said when she was talking about development centers of the Ozarks and we started talking about foster care and our heart for the kids, she said, you have to have Shayla on. And so we love that. We've really focused this last month on bringing awareness to foster care. And it is such a huge need, not just in our community, but all across the United States. But today we're going to talk about foster care and what we're doing here in Springfield, Missouri. So Shayla, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us what's going on tonight and just kind of tell us about your ministry and what's going on over at the church there.
Thank you.
it's great to know that somebody like Marissa was able to say, like, hey, I know someone from our church who's involved in this right now. At Ridgecrest Baptist Church, where I serve as the family development minister, we have had orphan care ministry for many years now. And we really were focused on adoption and helping families bring children home into their family domestically and internationally. And in the fall of 2019, my pastor, Dr. Jeremy Moniz, asked me to consider how we could impact orphan care on a bigger scale. And we both decided then that impacting the foster care system here in Greene County would be part of that. So we, of course, moved through a pandemic, and some of the things that we were planning had to take a little bit of a back seat. But this year, he's been preaching through the book of James. And at the very beginning of James, in chapter 1, at the end of it, it talks about the fact that pure religion, undefiled, is to care for widows and orphans. And so that was the point where we got to just really challenge our church that we needed to make an impact. We needed to live out our faith. And so May is Foster Care Awareness Month. So we had set forth some goals for our Defenders Orphan Care Ministry. And the first one of those goals is to reduce the foster care load here in Greene County. So we looked at our church and we said, what can we do? And so we decided that our first order of business was going to be to get our people informed and educated about foster care, with the goal of enlisting 10 of our families to become licensed, either as a foster family or a respite care family. And then also to put at least 10 families around them as support families so that they could help them with all those things. We've learned over the last several months, I've had the opportunity to meet with so many people in our area. I noticed that you had Casa and you had Dogwood Ranch on a few weeks ago, and I've gotten to sit down with Laura and with Dana and hear about what they do, the amazing work, and how that impacts what's going on here. And so our goal is to get foster families licensed. So this evening, we are going to do our very first Fostering Expo, and we have invited the Missouri Baptist Children's Home, who we've chosen to lead our efforts in getting families licensed. They also work with several entities here in the area, and so Foster Adopt Connect is going to come, and they're going to talk about the resources that are available right here in Greene County. That's a statewide organization, which I got introduced to years ago because my sister decided up in Kansas City to become a licensed foster parent. And I have two beautiful nephews now because after their rights were terminated for the parents, she adopted those little guys. And Foster Adopt Connect was huge in making sure she had extra supplies, making sure those boys had Christmas. And so we have a chapter right here, and they just redesigned their building and they do things through Sammy's window. And so I'm excited for them to share with our people how we can make sure foster families have the things that those children need. That's their goal. That can be counseling, that can be support for those foster families, and it also can be tangible clothes, food, hygiene items, that kind of thing. We're going to have Dogwood Ranch there to talk about the different things that they do out at the ranch to help support foster families. And we're going to have CASA there because we've got a couple people in our church who are CASA volunteers, but we think that that's a great way for people to impact what's going on. I really was touched by the fact that, every evening there are kids in Greene County who go to bed in a group home or a shelter, not in a family home, because there's not enough foster families in Greene County. And I think you heard from them, and I can repeat that there's, about 30 plus kids coming into the system every month right now, and about 650 kids in Greene County. I think there's 300 and some kids in Christian County that are in foster care. And what I've learned from some caseworkers is they're having to send kids into other counties and other parts of the state because we don't have enough here. So that's a little bit about the crisis that there is. And we believe that churches can be part of the solution. And so I just want to invite people who maybe you've been interested in what it means to be a foster family. It doesn't cost you anything to get licensed. And the wonderful thing about what we're doing at Ridgecrest is the second goal we have is to resource families who want to adopt and want to foster. And so we have generous people, and they want to make sure that kids have families to be in. So, there are things you have to do to your home to be ready to have foster kids in your home. And sometimes those cost you money, and we don't want money to be a barrier to families providing a safe and loving home. We want to be involved in what goes on with reunification. The foster care system is not designed for you to adopt kids through. It happens, but their primary goal is to see families reunified. And sometimes those moms and dads, they just need a mentor to walk alongside them and help them figure out what this parenting thing really should look like. They need help with resources in the community to get a home cleaned up, or to make sure that they have their light bill, paid so that they can have the lights on. And sometimes they need therapy and counseling and that kind of thing. And so we're excited about how we can impact families being reunified. And we believe that that's just a perfect picture of what the church should be doing. So we're looking forward to seeing how we can impact Greene County specifically through foster care.
And the event is tonight.
Tonight at 6:30.
And give them the address and a phone number if they want more information.
If you need to find out some more information today, you can call me at the church at 887-2317 and just ask for Shayla. Obviously, I'm not there right now. But the address is 2210 West Republic Road. That's Ridgecrest Baptist Church. You just take Kansas Expressway all the way south in Springfield till you get to Republic Road, and you turn to the west, and we are the church next to the big Catholic church. There's two big churches right there. So we would love to have you this evening. It's in our Ridgecrest room, and you can't miss it when you walk in the door. We'll have Missouri Baptist Children's Home, Foster Adopt Connect, CASA, Dogwood Ranch, and some gals from the Missouri Alliance for Children and Families, and then our own foster care ministry people, including, let me tell you one more thing. We have a young lady in our church who just graduated from Republic, and Republic has their students do a project each year. So she chose foster care, and she has done a project called Fostering Hope, and she has engaged people in putting together bags for kids, different ages and different genders, so that when they have to leave their home and they might not have everything that they need, they can have some brand new things to call their own. And so Zoe has put that together, and she'll be there this evening too.
Well, I love what you guys are doing. It's putting everything under one roof that people can come in and really just experience what this thing is that we're calling foster care from a place of such love, and letting people in the community know that there is an army ready to come behind them. They're not in this alone, and that there is so many resources out there, and don't let it be a barrier. If it's whatever it is, get in there and talk to the professionals and the organizations and see what's maybe keeping you from respite care, or keeping you from CASA, or keeping you from getting involved and taking on foster kids. We've got 3 foster kids in our family right now under the age of 7. And I tell you what, like the soldier side of me is like, we are going to fight for these children. They deserve the best. And it's super challenging on so many levels, because you have to stick with the goal. If the goal is reunification, then that's the goal that you're supporting. If the goal is adoption and that these children, their parents have had their rights terminated, then that's the goal. But ultimately, it's these children, and it's keeping them as the focus of what is best for them. And that's just wonderful that you guys are doing this. There's such a need. I'm so glad that the church is stepping up and really organizing and taking the point on all of that. And I just know it's going to be a super successful event today. And so if you're thinking at all about foster care, please get out and come tonight at 6:30.
Absolutely. We'd love to see them there.
Well, Lynn, do you have any questions?
Well, I was just going to tell you, Shayla, great job. I mean, so Hosey Blue, I mentioned that before the show started, your minister from several years ago,
Yes.
great guy. He's the Western Commissioner. I serve as the Eastern Commissioner in Christian County. he told me to tell you hello, and he may actually be watching. He was very interested when I said he wasn't interested in me or Don, but when I said, well, Shayla Hale is going to be on the show and talking about a first ever foster care program for Ridgecrest Baptist Church in Springfield, Missouri, he goes, well, what time and how do I see that show? So if Hosey's watching, hello, Hosey. Good morning. I'll be back down at the courthouse later on. But tremendous. I'm so glad you guys are doing that. And you mentioned something a while ago that I really do feel is important. Churches have always been the backbone of our country. They've been so important. Our religious freedoms, being able to worship all different types of religions in our country, and the different flavors I say that's around. We're so fortunate in Southwest Missouri because we have great churches of all types, and that's really, I think, makes it better. But I think today in the world and the changing times, I think it's going to be even more important with all these problems and issues that we've got going on in this country. I salute you because churches need to take an active role in all sorts of things. You pick out, you can't do everything. Every church can't do everything, but all the churches can do something. And if you do that, then you're going to make a difference in community like in Springfield, Southwest Missouri, and throughout the country. If all the churches, if people would be watching today, you've got to take a stand and you've got to do something positive today. And sometimes I felt like in the past, churches are a little bit holding back, maybe because they're afraid that they'll get their exemption taken away or do this or do that. Another thing that not exactly about foster care, but just about churches is I just discovered a couple of years ago that and we know this country has a tremendous problem with the homeless. And a lot of our churches in the Springfield area do a good job, especially when the weather is extremely cold, out there to house these people. I mean, I don't know how they live in the conditions, especially this last winter burst that we had, extremely, extremely cold and things like that. I discovered down in Christian County, Don, where you and I live, that right now, today, there's about 300 homeless people in Christian County. Now, I would have never thought that. And I didn't know that until about 2 years ago. So my wife, Jan and I have been donating and working and helping with the Homeless Alliance in Christian County. I'm going to get more involved in it because, unfortunately, a lot of those homeless people are children. They're kids between the ages of 10, 12, all through high school. And they don't have a home. They stay at friends' homes. They live in a car. They just kind of bounce around. They bounce around. And how do you think they study and get proper nutrition and proper sleep and everything? So don't know what the answer is. But I think, again, churches need to take a role in things. We'll talk about homelessness. That will be another subject because it's something that we've got to deal with. I mean, you can't just put your head in the sand and ignore all these changes that's going on in our country. We have to do that. But I just tell you what, I praise you for in Ridgecrest Baptist Church. I've gone up there several times, attended church services. You had special music at night and things like that, and I always like it. And so great job.
Lynn, really, when we think about it as a church, the gospel message should be what drives us to do something. If we cannot live out the faith that we say we have, then our works are nothing. Right. That we need to walk the walk. And so everyone can do something. Not everyone's going to be called to do foster care. Some are going to be called to impact the homeless care system. Right. Some may be called to help in other areas, but the gospel drives us. We have a message, and that hope of Jesus Christ and eternal life through his salvation, through his death and resurrection, makes it something that we want to share. Yeah. And we believe that everyone needs to hear that and needs to feel the love of the gospel impact in their life. And so, yes, you need to dive into that homeless situation. We know, and I learned this through CASA and through Dogwood Ranch, that kids who are left in that kind of cycle, they become our next homeless population. And
Right.
so, especially older youth that are about to age out of the foster care system without the right support, that's where they end up. And then there's trafficking and, there's all
Right.
kinds of things. And so
Right.
the family is what I believe God designed for communities to thrive in. And so we need to see families strong. And that means vulnerable children need to be cared for so that those cycles aren't perpetuated. Yeah.
Well, I agree. So thank you. So, again, Shayla, you and Dawn, this is what she does to me. So I'm going to start being first instead of last, because she sets the bar up so high when she does her interviews that, sorry, doctor, but we're going to do as good. Okay. We're going to do just as good, but the pressure is always on us because now we have to follow what you just heard and tremendous back and forth. I really appreciate that. So our next guest is a good friend of mine, longtime friend, Dr. Scott Mcgill. And Dr. Scott Mcgill is, and he's going to tell you a lot about himself. He's a very interesting man. And what have you done? You delivered over 8,000, 9,000 children?
A little north of 9,000.
A little north of 9,000 children, 9,000 little babies that just make a lot of noise when they
Absolutely.
first come
Fortunately, I didn't have to take them all home.
Well, that you would be a big foster care guy if you took all of them home. That would be you'd be the champion if you took 9,000
Absolutely.
kids home. But no. So and you, sir, were a Marine, and so kind of tell the audience. We got people listening all over the world right now. So why did you enlist, and a little bit about your enlistment time?
Well, I enlisted in 1965. A lot of it had to do with the war that was ongoing at that time. I never did leave the United States, which is a cross that I carry, if you would. Because you wonder who didn't come home because you weren't there. But then I got out of the Marine Corps and I went to medical school. While I was going to undergraduate school, I was with the Denver Police Department. And after graduation, I went to Trinity University for a master's in hospital administration, then went on to medical school. Did a residency at Tripler Army Medical Center. I could not convince the Marine Corps they needed an OBGYN. So I ended up joining the Army instead and did a residency there. Then was the chief of OBGYN at Fort Riley in Kansas. And then quit, got out after about 7 years there and opened a practice here in Springfield and been here ever since.
Well,
Closed that practice in 2010 for various reasons, a lot being a very deep concern over the most important patient I felt, our country. And we launched a program then called Veterans in Defense of Liberty.
well, so let's talk about that. So you are the president of that organization and the Veterans in Defense of Liberty. And that's a great title, just in the fact that liberty is being challenged right now in our country. And we're kind of at the point where I still believe that we can break through and protect our liberties and our freedoms. But if we don't do something, we could lose everything.
We could lose everything. Veterans are the ones that swore to defend and protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Veterans have, since 1775 until today, 1.5 to 2 million of them have made the last full measure of devotion so that our freedom and liberty would go on forever. They didn't do it for us. I really get tired sometimes of hearing the statement, well, they sacrificed for our freedom and they died for our liberty. No, they didn't. We are the caretakers of it today. They died so the freedom and liberty would extend till the very end of time. And part of a big mission of Veterans in Defense of Liberty to assure that their sacrifice, our brothers and sisters, America's sons and daughters, that their sacrifice is never in vain. And as such, we are engaged very heavily in educating veterans and Americans around the country what the Constitution is. When we swore to defend and protect the Constitution, what did that mean? It didn't mean some musty piece of paper in our collective memory. It meant the culture and the society that grew out of that musty piece of paper that we revere so deeply. So we are a 501c4 activist organization, divided into 8 divisions across the country. Each division is divided into the regimental level, which is the state level, and each state is further divided down to the battalion level, which is the congressional district level. And we're fortunate. I love to brag now because we have a new national commander that I'm just tickled to death with. He is a West Point graduate, Major General, 2-star Daniel York. And Daniel York is the great-great-nephew of Sergeant York. So very, very, very dear man, very devout Christian, and understands the Christian underpinnings and the foundation of this country based upon the Christian values that we are losing.
Well, you guys are very involved in different activities. Mm-hmm. I know that, and I don't remember how many years, you surprised me with an award that I participated in. What was that, about 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, it was in 2016, I believe.
2016,
5 years ago.
And it was a salute to America, mm-hmm. and a lot of veterans were there. A lot of music, patriotic music. Was it on the 4th of July?
That was Flag Day.
Flag Day.
Yeah,
Flag Day was what okay, yeah. And so you guys do a lot of that, educating and things mm-hmm. like that. One of the things I wanted to point out, I want the camera to see this, the Pledge of Allegiance Workbook. So this is a really cool book. I'm going to have you talk about it. It's sponsored by the Veterans in Defense of Liberty, and it's a book, 86 pages. I've kind of already thumbed through it. And it really is designed for parents and grandparents to teach their children. Unfortunately, sometimes we still say the Pledge of Allegiance, okay? But if you break it down, what each word means,
yeah,
that's what you've got to do.
That's what
if you're just saying it and you're just repetitiously saying it and you don't really know what it means nothing.
Well,
it means nothing. So I really like this. You're going to try to get into all the foster homes and not foster homes, but the well, that'd be a good thing too. But to into homeschooling, all the co-ops and things like that would be a great thing. It'd be a great thing to get into all the public schools and everything like that. A little bit more politics to try to get that into all the schools, unfortunately. But the more people, because I really believe this, parents and grandparents, if we don't teach our kids the real history and what's going on about our country and our freedoms and things like that, it's all over with, because some schools now are beginning to not teach any of those things. They're staying away from it and teaching things that we don't want our kids to learn. So I applaud you. So tell us about that book a little bit more.
Well, it's exactly, you pretty well summed it up. We are going to have it on our website. We have a new website that should be launched hopefully this week with a lot of books, but the coloring book, the workbook, will be as well. And that's at vidolAmerica.org. And anybody can pick up one of the books. It is intended just for that, for the parents and grandparents to be able to go over the Pledge of Allegiance and what each word means. And Lynn, you've known me for a lot of years. You know, I've been beating that drum forever and ever. And I will assure you it's done right in this Pledge of Allegiance workbook. And that is words matter, and the way we say words matter. And there is a world of difference between saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag and one nation under God, indivisible, and saying one nation under God, indivisible. there is no comma between those, but we say it rote, we say it because that's we learned it in school. And so it will teach them to say the pledge correctly, and it'll teach them giving a foundation of why they're saying that pledge.
Well, and this book is awesome because I know you probably can't see it on TV, but it's all illustrated. It's illustrated. There's like crossword puzzles, other types of things that a lot of coloring you can do, and it's designed basically for different age groups. What would you say your age group is?
Oh, it's probably above second grade and above.
So second grade through junior high school at least.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is something else maybe I'll talk to you later about. For the last several years, I've gone, except for last year because of the pandemic, I've been able to go in the summertime, go to libraries at Ozark and Nixon places, and I teach a state government class and let them know a little bit let the kids know about state government. And we actually talk a little bit about federal, but the only impact, I want people to know this, that the real impact that we all have as citizens in this country is local and state. When it gets up into the federal, yes, we vote for our senator, our U.S. senator, our U.S. congressman, but the impact that you can make, every person that's listening today and watching today can make is on a local and statewide level. You need to engage in those people and know who they are and visit with them and tell them what you want them to work on, what kind of legislation you want them to work on. If you don't get involved, we won't have the type of state that we want to have or country that we want to have. But I may be able to try to see if I can incorporate this into a couple of classes we have. And what's really neat is I only did it for kids. I only did it for, like what you said, we'll say third graders and through junior high school. Mm-hmm. I tried to do a high school class, but I didn't get a lot of attendance. They're real busy by that time. And you really need to have their values already taught to them before they get to be high school. But what was interesting is there was grandparents in their 70s and 80s and sometimes 60s that would come to the class and sit in the back. Mm-hmm. And they actually told me they learned a lot. They learned a lot, and it was really refreshing to hear that, mm-hmm. And so that's really good too. Have you got any activities planned coming up?
Oh, we do. We have two programs, about to add a third program, but two programs within Veterans in Defense of Liberty. One is the Champions of Liberty program, where we actually bring veterans did bring them into Washington, D.C. for intensive training and for a week, and then what the Constitution is, what the hot button topics are, and how to win on the hot button topics. And then they go back into their local community, as you were just saying, to become the go-to people, to talk to the schools, to do public speaking, to write the op-eds. We just launched a new program within that, which was called Conference of Leadership. And we bring in one Sunday evening a month on a Zoom call, a national speaker to talk about an issue. Our first one is taking on CRT. And we had Carol Swain that spoke the first night. First Sunday, and then this month, Chris Kobach, who has some marvelous legislation. So we're pushing those issues. The second one I want to mention briefly is we have a program called Liberty Riders of America, which is a motorcycle group of veterans. And this year we don't do it on Memorial Day, which is coming up, because Rolling Thunder had done it, but a lot of people don't realize that Missouri has the only identical sister wall to the Vietnam Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. In fact, if you lined them up, they're lined up on the same grid. If you just move them together, they blend. Mm-hmm. We do a ride from Springfield, not on Memorial Day, but on POWMIA Awareness Day, to Perryville, Missouri. Last year we had showed up with 800 motorcycles.
Wow.
This year will be probably well over 1,000 maybe close to 2,000. We have Tim Chambers, who is the saluting Marine, will be there, and General Pat Brady. General Pat Brady is the most decorated veteran in America today, and he will be the keynote speaker. But I want to kind of go back then with, this is not on Memorial Day, but Memorial Day is coming up this weekend, and it no longer is it a day of remembrance. Now it's a weekend of remembrance. And I think it's very important that we realize that, like I said, 1.5 to 2 million of America's sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, did pay the last full measure of devotion. And it's imperative that Americans remember them. There's 58,000 of them on that wall. I think it's very interesting, and I want to tell a real quick story because very few people understand. Everybody thinks that Memorial Day began, the first one was in 1868.
1868.
And then there were a lot of towns that tried to say they had done it before then. Mm-hmm. It was proven in 1996. There was a gentleman writing a book, a Yale professor, and he was asked if he'd like to go through a couple of boxes from the Yankee soldiers that had never been gone through. And he went through that. In Charleston, South Carolina, where the war began, because Memorial Day originally was just for Civil War soldiers, mm-hmm. until we had 116,000 plus deaths in World War I, and it incorporated everybody that had served. Mm-hmm. But Charleston, South Carolina had a racetrack called the Washington Race Course and Jockey Club that had been turned into a POW camp, basically, for Union soldiers that were captured. And some 260 of those died. And when they died, they were immediately buried behind the grandstands of this race course. Subsequently, when the war was over and the Confederates evacuated Charleston, about all that were left were the recently emancipated slaves. And the first thing they did was to exhume all of those 260 bodies and put them in an appropriate burial and buried them surrounded by a whitewashed picket fence, mm-hmm. and a sign on it that said, Martyrs of the Race Course. Mm-hmm. Then on the 1st of May in 1865, right after the war was over, they actually held the first day of remembrance with some 10,000 emancipated slaves and a lot of Union black warriors. And they marched around the racetrack and they had speeches. They had 3,000 black school children that participated carrying flowers and singing John Brown's Body, And this was the first actual day of remembrance that was ever done in the city where the war started, and in the city basically where it ended.
Well, hey, thank you for sharing that. We're about to run out of time, but I want to just wish Don and I and our guest here, everyone, a happy Memorial Day weekend, and knowing that Monday, May 31st, it's always on the last Monday of May that we support and recognize Memorial Day. And today it's a day where we certainly honor our veterans, and we thank everyone for their service. Thank you for your service. I thank Dawn for her service. Shayla, you weren't in the military, were you?
I wasn't.
No, but I tell you what, so many people are. So we thank everyone for their service. And it's also a time, though, for everyone to decorate all of their family members' graves and things like that. It's an American holiday that interesting enough that in 1968, they changed it from Decoration Day to Memorial Day. In 1971, they made it a federal holiday. Right. And from that point on, it became always the last Monday in the month of May. But I think we're just about ready to run out of time. How much time do we have left, Mr. Producer?
We're about out of time.
We're about out of time. So, Don, how do we always end?
Everybody be the change, and we'll see you back next week. We're going to cover mental health next month, addiction, and really get into that fight. So be the change.
Land stays free under God, not tyranny. That's what it means to really dream. 1, 2, 3. Can I get a hoorah from a patriot like me?